Tony D with a behind the scenes, some stories from the road, so to speak. Um, so today was a good day for that. First, I was at the third annual Cryptid and Paranormal event, and this was held in a building. It's a restaurant, banquet kind of facility called Our House. Not sure how old the exact building is. However, it is positioned on a spot that once had the courthouse for Farmingdale, New Jersey. And you may have heard me mention Farmingdale before. It was the area where two highway bandits from the Revolutionary War, Fagin and Fenton, operated out of the middle of the state, usually going south and to whatever villages they could find, robbing people. They were loyalists, and they were eventually caught for their banditry and hung. And the story goes that Fenton tried to bargain for their lives. He said, "We have gold back at our hideout. Let us go and you can have it." The authorities said no. He tried to escape and they shot him dead. The story I got in Farmingdale was that it was the Fenton brothers or the Fagin brothers. So there may have been more than one Fagin, I think, and that they were hung. So Fagin was hung. I don't think they mentioned Fenton. And the spot was at the courthouse, which was where this facility, the banquet hall, Our House, was situated. So the courthouse isn't there anymore. However, they said the tree that they supposedly used for the hanging was out front, or it used to be, and sometime I guess their ghost would linger in that area. So people were talking about it a little bit today. So that was one. Then the other stories were a lot of people seemingly came up to me with stories about the Jersey Devil, and I think I met at least two Leeds family descendants. So that was kind of a lot in one day. So one guy said he was out on Route 72. Now, if you know where Route 72 is, it's it kind of branches off from Route 70 out in the Pine Barrens, and it's a very desolate road. I mean, it's the epitome of a piney road, one that's paved. And a lot of people use it to go to the shore. I'm actually going to be on 72 tomorrow. And it actually also, right off of 72, you can get to the Cedar Bridge Tavern, which I've mentioned at least twice in the Pineys. It's the place where the last battle of the American Revolution was held, which that scene is in book 17, as a matter of fact, with Bloody John Bacon. Anyhow, this has nothing to do with Bacon. The guy told me, I'm driving out there, and this was back in the 80s, and he was all by himself, and he saw this figure sort of hunched, and he actually went so far as to pantomime the whole thing, right? He's like, yeah, so it's hunched over like this, and it had its back toward me, so I'm by myself, but I see this thing, so I decide to pull over a little bit and flash the headlights to see what it is or who it is, because he's kind of not sure from the look of it. And he said the thing turns around and sort of rears up like this. And I said, did it have wings? He said, yes. Oh, it had wings. And I said, well, did it fly off? He said, no. And he said it didn't have horns, which I thought was kind of interesting. So it had wings, but no horns. And I guess it was kind of like furry. And I said, did it take off? He said, I took off. Because he was freaked out by it, and he turned his car around and went back down 72. And then another woman, or that was a man, a woman told me she saw the Jersey Devil with her friends. Again, this is back in the day, probably in the 80s, and her and her family went into the Pines a lot. They would go camping. They'd go down to, I think she said Menantico, where Millville is. That's where the other blue holes are. And they'd go down there, And one night they were down there and they saw a huge. They heard a noise, and she said it was. She heard like the scraping of metal and other things and like a scream, and this thing sort of swoops over the car and kind of scrapes the car, and they could see the underbelly of the creature, whatever it was, and she described it as it looked like the underbelly of, say, a puppy. So it was all furry, but the fur, I guess the fur was short. And then when they got back from being out in the Pine Barrens, they checked the cars and they were all scratched up. And then somebody was like, "Oh, that's probably the branches," and she was like, "No, those aren't branch scratches." I mean, there is a major difference between, scratching up your car from just hitting a few branches and then, something of powerful size going like that. It reminded me a little bit of the blue mist, although there was no blue mist involved, but the fact that their cars got all messed up during this encounter, which is something that happens when the blue mist, you drive through the blue mist. So yeah, so at least two. I think there was one other, and I'm struggling to remember. God, I can't remember. But then again, there were at least two Leeds descendants today. So they were pretty pumped to see my books, and a lot of people were actually. So it was a good day, and so the cryptid thing is really taken off. At least at this show, there was an illustrator across from me. He did illustrations of the Jersey Devil, but like also cryptids from every state. So he'd do like this really nice. They were like the inside illustrations of an old school book, right? Those stencils almost. So they were black and white, very detailed, and then he'd have like an image of a state, and then around them would be the cryptids from that state. And he had quite a few of them. I couldn't believe how many there were. So, a lot of people have asked me, will the Pineys go to other states? And I do want to do some stories about that. But I sort of want to, exhaust New Jersey to a large degree before I do that. But when I saw some of the other cryptids from some of the other states, which I had never heard of, it was pretty interesting, especially the ones in Maryland, because I'm seeing a lot of Maryland connection to South Jersey's Jersey Devil. So recently, and this wasn't at the show, but recently, one of my fans, Clinton, you may have seen him in the chats during the live stream, he told me that he knows of a place in Maryland called Galloway Point, and he asked me if it had any connection to Galloway Township. And at first I thought, oh, it's probably just a coincidence, and I sent him the Google map, and I said, here's Galloway Township. I figured he didn't know what that was. And then I did a quick sort of grok question for Grok to see if there was any obvious connection, and it turned out there was a huge obvious connection. So Galloway Point was founded by a branch of the Galloway family that settled in Maryland in the late 1600s. But then Joseph Galloway, who you also remember from book 17 if you've read it, one of the Galloway descendants, and who Galloway Township is probably named after, although that's not 100%, moved from Maryland to South Jersey. And of course, Galloway Township is where Leeds Point is, and where the Jersey Devil was most likely born. So that was kind of a cool connection too. And it's just been a really interesting week of a lot of cool fan connections. Plus, I met some folks who do podcasts. I think I did some shtick for somebody's podcast. I forget the name of it. So hopefully I'll be getting on some other podcasts soon to talk about the Jersey Devil, and just in general, if you're in the Farmingdale area next year, keep in mind, I mean, it was a really cool show. They had some cool speakers, and Really interesting stuff. You go to a regular sort of market, it's kind of all the same stuff. But when you go to a cryptid show, if you're into cryptids at all, they got some really cool things. A lot of Bigfoot stuff, man. If you love Bigfoot, you got to come to a show. Holy cow, people love Bigfoot, man. They love them. I don't know what they would do if they ever saw a Bigfoot. These guys would they'd go nuts. I'm surprised there wasn't anybody in costume as Bigfoot, but maybe they didn't want to start a riot. But yeah, no, it was a great show. So hope to be back again next year. Next year I'll probably be speaking. The organizers say, "Oh, we should have you speak next year." I'm like, "Ooh, that would be nice." Anyhow, that's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. I'm doing a live stream tomorrow, but before that, I'll be at Lucille's Luncheonette from 10 to 2. And then after that, I have to pick up somebody at the airport. So I might push back the live stream to like 8. I don't know. I should be back. I'm going to wait until I get back from Lucille's, see what time I get back, and then pull decide when. I might just push it back to 8 just to be safe, because if I get jammed up at the airport, and I don't want to have the live stream going off at 7 because what happens if you schedule one, as you probably know, if you schedule a live stream for a certain time and it doesn't go off, it just starts counting down as people wait for you. And I always hate that. When I tune into a live stream, I expect the person to be on time. But so I might push it back to 7:38, probably 8, just to be safe. Because if I get jammed up at the airport, who knows how long it'll take. So, anywho, see you on the live stream tomorrow, where we'll talk about the box office and movies and whatever else you want to talk about. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you.